All right, so I'm just going to cut to the chase. No entertainment, not much. Today is the air compressor. It's starting to pass some oil right here and on the intake side, and I've already checked the turbo, and the turbo has no oil coming out of it on the seal. So if it was, it could get introduced through the charged air cooler and back around through the intake. So first things first, we're gonna have to drain the coolant out. I got some dirty buckets right here because I plan on using new coolant. Okay, so there's the coolant. Now that the coolant's out, we can start taking off some of these lines. 5/8 wrench for these air fitting lines. This fuel fitting is a 1 inch wrench. It is a little weird. You're gonna have to, I had to bust it loose had to pull the wrench going towards myself to bust this loose. So now I'm gonna finish taking this off and cover it with some tin foil and a zip tie. That's what that looks like, just some tin foil and a zip tie around it for good measure so nothing gets into this fuel. I probably need to do the same thing for this pump. 5/8 for this top line on the fuel pump. Okay, so I'm gonna skip over this fuel line from now. I'm having trouble with it kinking up. I might have to take this and this off. But these clamps for me are 5/16, or you can use 7mm. Intake pipe off. It was a little tricky. You almost have to kind of pull back and bend on it, but try not to break it. And I had to use this adjustable wrench with the clip and my breaker bar that I use on the flatbed. I had to put it on this and hold this at the same time, and it broke it loose. So there we go. So if you have a contraption like this, it might be pretty hard to get off. I'm gonna take these two fittings off. They're 1/2 inch. You'll need a 1/2 inch wrench. You undo them, then that'll make this piece loose where you can just loosen it from here. All right, so don't forget to take this shut-off solenoid wire off. 3/8. Be very careful with it. You never know how fragile it might be. And these are going to be for the mounting bolts on the fuel pump. 7/16 12-point socket. And we'll do that next. We're starting to have some more space in here. Now I'm about to take these bolts off the fuel pump, pull it off. But before I do that, I decided to go ahead and get these two coolant lines off. So this is a 15/16 wrench. So this one's loose, and I get that one off. And remember, of course, we already drained the coolant. Right. So we got the fuel pump off, and if yours is anything like mine, I got this clip right here that the bolt goes through, and even after you get the 4 bolts off, it'll hold it in place until you loosen this up a little bit. And this is 13/16. So I used a 13/16 socket, but I kind of messed up. As soon as I loosened this, the whole fuel pump fell. But luckily I'm on top of grass, so maybe it didn't hurt it too bad. But yeah, you can move this out the way like that. You don't even have to take that all the way out. So now we're looking at the compressor. And you got this. I don't know if this hooks straight up to my fuel pump. Oh no, okay, I see it. See down there? Right there. There's the spider piece. You know, and it's recommended that you replace that spider piece. So I actually do have a new one that I'll put in there. So that spider piece hooks in here and allows this to, you know, directly drive the fuel pump. So now we start at these bolts. And I was told to leave this bolt in and do this bolt last, but go ahead and take this one and this one out. Then you can use this special wrench, which Mr. Pete at Diesel Specialist let me borrow this wrench. So this wrench is needed to go, you know, back in here and reach the bolt that's down there. Then you work it loose, then flip it over and work it loose, and rinse and repeat. All right, it's a new day, back at it. Just pulled the air compressor off. Yep, those 4 bolts. So basically what I did was this was the last bolt I left. So that way when I took this out with my left hand while I was supporting the weight of the compressor with my right hand, then once I got that bolt out, there's a spline piece, and that's kind of holds it together. But then you can, you know, once you take that bolt out, you can use your left hand to support underneath the top of the head maybe and pull it out that way. But here's what the spline piece looks like. So, you know, if it drops on the ground or anything, you want to clean it out real good. And this will slide back into here. Like that. So probably want to clean this mating surface off, which mine seems to be pretty good. There's no gasket left behind. So yeah, that'll be clean and ready. And there's the 4 bolt holes. That's that one that you need a special wrench to reach over there. Then you got this top one, boom, boom, boom. And yeah, so I'm gonna try to walk the new air compressor in. Probably start with this bolt or with this one. But I'm about to go look at the new air compressor. I probably have some fittings I need to take off of the old one maybe, and also put my new air governor onto the air compressor and make sure the holes match up. You know, everything's plugged the same way on the governor. So a quick look at the new air compressor. So yeah, these 2 fittings need to be put onto here. Then this fitting will be this one. And it comes with a gasket on both sides, I guess, for the fuel pump, and on this side, even though I went out and bought a fuel pump gasket already, but maybe I'll use the Cummins brand. So, alrighty. Fitting is a 32 millimeter, and I struggled with it on my other one. I was using all sorts of wrenches and breaker bars, and I forgot, I got a Milwaukee M18 gun with a deep socket. So I put it on here, reversed it out. I couldn't even hardly press the trigger down long enough, and it was already off. So yep, that's a 32 millimeter. So yeah, I got the other fittings loose. They weren't so bad. Just used a 7/8 wrench for these top ones. So yep, I'm gonna go ahead and try to mount this compressor back up. Well, at least it looks like you're doing something when you have tools all over the place. Oh, all right, so the air compressor's back on. It's got those 4 bolts. That's one of them, and that's one down below. Goes all the way around. Like I said, for that one over there, you're definitely going to have that special wrench that I showed earlier. Got the 2 fittings back on up there, and those are, I think, what they call JIC fittings. So you got to be careful when you snug those up. Don't snug them too tight, or you might break the way that it bevels up and the way it seals. Excuse me if I'm using the wrong term. I got this fuel pump back on. The gasket they gave me really wasn't that good of a fit, but made do. No, I mean, I bought a Cummins gasket too. So now that that's back up, I'm going to hook up that high pressure line, starting with right here first, tighten it down, then hook it up there, attach the fuel shut-off solenoid, attach the intake piping, attach the exhaust pipe, and make sure this fuel line gets back in too. I'll probably do that first after the high pressure line. Then yeah, that'll be pretty much it. Fill back up with coolant, and change the air dryer filter, which is back down underneath the cab. Right, since the last clip, I went and bought one of these new high pressure lines, hooked this T-fitting up to it, and this piece is part of the hose, and it'll screw up into this. So what I did was I went ahead and put this T-piece on the fuel line first, and I left it just a little loose so I could slide these other, position it where these other two fittings can go and get started. And once I got these two started into the T-fitting, actually once I tightened them all the way down, then I came back to the T-fitting and held it with a 5/8 wrench and used a half-inch wrench on this to finish tightening it. And I held the T-fitting down with the 5/8 so I didn't bend the new line. But of course you would tighten this down first, then do what I just mentioned. Got this fuel line back on, and like I said earlier, this is a 1-inch wrench that you'll need for this one. And I got this fuel shut-off solenoid wire connected. So now I'm putting this back in, and I already cleaned this out. Got all the oil residue out. So if you're looking at it like this on mine, see how it goes from down and it curves up. That'll go in this, and that'll go in that side of the compressor. Then I just hook up this discharge line and fill her back up with the green antifreeze. All right, here's a look at everything put back together. As I said, we already put the fuel line back on. This got slid onto there, with the curve coming down this way on mine. Boom, boom. Got this fitting back on. Like I said, I don't know what size fitting this is. I had to use a big adjustable wrench. But it's also like one of those JIC style fittings, so you want it tight, but not so tight that you break the JIC, the bevel or whatever it's called on the inside, the sphere type shaped piece in there that allows it to seal. Because if you crank it too tight, you could crack it and it'll leak that way too. Got this line back on, like I said. Got the new air governor. I switched over all the fittings exactly like it was in the other one. Like this is closed off, and got these fittings back on. This piece, this exhaust piece, so needs to be hooked up the same way, and it should come with a gasket. So this is the gasket back there. So here's another good look at everything. Exhaust air line, intake air line, 2 coolant lines, fuel line, fuel pump, this fuel supply, fuel shut-off solenoid, air governor. It's time to fill the coolant up. And I got concentrated green antifreeze. Of course you could use 50/50, but what I'll do is just, me personally, what I'll do is add it up, 1 gallon of green concentrate, then 1 gallon of distilled water, 1 gallon of green concentrate, 1 gallon of distilled water until it's full. Alright, so that's the air compressor. Like I say, I'm not a mechanic or anything like that, just truck driver out here trying to offset some costs, learn a little on the way, and try to also do things the right way, because sometimes more often than not, you pay somebody to do the job and you go over and look, you look over their work, and there's all sorts of little things they didn't do right. They didn't tighten up the air fitting right, or they tightened it up too much, or they left this air line rubbing up against the metal frame or something like that. So anyways, hopefully you at least got to see some of the steps, and I do advise to not do the high pressure fuel line like I said, because when I left it loose and tightened it on the T-fitting, it leaked out fuel when I first powered back on. So I had to take those lines off, take the air intake off, and take the fuel line off of the fuel pump and really tighten it down good on the T-fitting to the fuel line, then hook it back up. So but besides that, hopefully this will give you a little visual. Yet again, I didn't see this N14 air compressor, and even if you're trying to do the fuel pump, you at least get to see some of that. And I will say probably the hardest part about this job is not even that bolt that's hard to reach with that special wrench, but it's probably just getting the fuel pump to go back into the air compressor with that spider piece. It's a really, really tight fit if you get a new piece. So good luck. Thanks for watching.